You found the tickets. $90 each, not cheap, but fine. Then you hit checkout. A service fee. A facility fee. A processing fee. And that $90 ticket is suddenly $140. You already know this feeling. Everyone does. Ticketmaster is one of the most hated companies in America, and its fees are a running national joke. But here's the part that should actually bother you. You can't go anywhere else. There is no rival site with lower fees, no competitor to reward by switching. Because the company behind Ticketmaster doesn't just sell you the ticket. It also owns the tour, and it controls the building you're walking into. Wherever you turn, you end up back at the same toll booth, and that is not an accident. It was built that way, on purpose, over decades. So the question isn't why are the fees so high? Everyone asks that. The real question is stranger: how did one company make itself completely impossible to avoid? Follow the money. To see how the trap was built, start with the ticket itself. Ticketmaster was founded in 1976, and its original idea was genuinely useful. Before it, buying a concert ticket meant physically going to a box office or a record store and standing in line. Ticketmaster computerized that, one network, wired into venues, that could sell a seat from anywhere. That was a real innovation, and venues liked it. But Ticketmaster figured out something clever, and a little bit ruthless. Instead of charging the venues for this service, it offered to pay them. Ticketmaster would sign a venue to a long, exclusive contract. We, and only we, sell your tickets, and in exchange, it would hand the venue a cut of the fees. The fees that the fan pays. So the venue now had every reason to sign, because those fees were partly its money, and every reason to look the other way as the fees climbed. The one group that might have objected to the fees was being paid by them. Right there, in the 1980s, you can already see the shape of the whole thing. The customer has no say, and everyone with power in the room makes more money when the customer pays more. Now, was this really a monopoly? Someone tried to prove it. In 1994, the band Pearl Jam, at the absolute peak of their fame, decided to fight. They wanted to play a tour with low ticket prices and low fees, and Ticketmaster wouldn't move on its cut. So Pearl Jam tried to route around it, to book a tour using only venues that had no Ticketmaster contract. And they found they basically couldn't. Ticketmaster had so many venues locked up that a band which could sell out any arena in America could not assemble an ordinary tour without it. Pearl Jam took their complaint to the US Justice Department, accusing Ticketmaster of running a monopoly. The government looked into it, and dropped the case. Ticketmaster had won, and the lock-in it had built stayed exactly where it was. Hold on to that. As far back as 1994, the biggest band in the world could not escape Ticketmaster. And that was before the company had even played its biggest card. That card came in 2010. And to understand it, you have to know that putting on a concert actually involves three separate businesses. The first is promotion. The promoter is the company that actually mounts the tour. It pays the artist a guaranteed sum, books the dates, takes the financial risk, and runs the whole traveling operation. The largest concert promoter in the world is a company called Live Nation. The second business is the venues, the arenas, and especially the big outdoor amphitheaters where the summer tours play. And Live Nation doesn't just promote shows into other people's buildings. It owns or operates a large number of those buildings itself. The third business is ticketing. That's Ticketmaster. In 2010, the two giants merged. Live Nation, the biggest promoter, and a major venue owner, combined with Ticketmaster, the biggest ticketer, into one company, Live Nation Entertainment. The government approved the merger and attached a set of rules meant to stop the new giant from abusing its power. Remember those rules? We'll come back to them. Because look at what a single company now controlled. It controlled the tours, which artists get promoted, and where they go. it controlled much of the venues those tours need. And it controlled the ticketing inside them. Three businesses that used to keep each other honest, now pulling in the same direction. And that combination creates what you might call a flywheel, a loop where every piece makes the others stronger. Here's how the loop turns. Say you run a venue, and you're fed up with Ticketmaster. You'd like to switch to a cheaper ticketing company. But the same corporation that owns Ticketmaster also controls the biggest tours in the country. And the quiet message the government later said it sent was this: drop our ticketing, and you may find those tours are no longer available to you. Lose the concerts, and your building goes dark. So you stay with Ticketmaster, not because it's the best, or the cheapest, but because you cannot afford to make that company angry. Now run the loop from the artist's side. To play the major amphitheaters and collect the big guaranteed paycheck, you go through the dominant promoter, which routes you into its venues, which run its ticketing. And from the fan side, every road leads to the same checkout screen, with the same fees, because there is no venue down the street using anyone else. Each part of the machine bolts the next part in place. The promotion protects the venues protect the ticketing, and the ticketing money flows back to fund the promotion. And those rules the government attached back in 2010, the ones meant to prevent exactly this kind of arm twisting? In 2019, the Justice Department concluded that Live Nation had violated them, repeatedly leaning on venues. And instead of the rules doing their job, they had to be tightened and extended. The referee had blown the whistle, and nothing about the game had changed. Seen this way, the fee stopped looking like simple greed and start looking like design. In a normal market, when one seller gouges you, you walk to another. Here, there is no other. The fee isn't the price that competition settled on. It's the price you pay once competition has been engineered out of the room. For years, most people felt all this only as a low-grade annoyance, a few extra dollars, a company to grumble about. It took a pop star to turn the annoyance into a reckoning. In November of 2022, Taylor Swift announced the Eras Tour, one of the most in-demand tours in history. Ticketmaster ran the sale. And it collapsed. The pre-sale was mobbed, the site buckled, and fans sat in digital waiting rooms for hours, watching the system fail. Ticketmaster later said its systems had been hit with billions of requests, jammed further by bots. And then, unable to cope, it did something extraordinary: it cancelled the general public sale altogether. Millions of people who had been promised a chance to buy simply never got one. Here's why that reached far beyond a single tour. It made the invisible visible. All at once, a massive, furious, very online audience was asking the exact question this video opened with: why is there no alternative? If Ticketmaster is this bad, why can't I just go somewhere else? The meltdown didn't create the monopoly. It switched the lights on so everyone could finally see it. Within weeks, the US Senate hauled the company in front of a committee. Senators from both parties, who agree on almost nothing, lined up to attack the same target. The pressure that had been missing since Pearl Jam in 1994 came roaring back. And this time, the government moved. In May of 2024, the US Department of Justice, joined by dozens of state attorneys general, sued Live Nation Entertainment. And this time it didn't ask for new rules or a bigger fine. It asked a court to break the company apart, to split the ticketing away from the promotion and the venues, and dismantle the flywheel itself. For 2 years, the company fought back hard, insisting it was no monopoly at all, that most of the fee actually goes to the venues, that real competition exists, and that it was being blamed for problems baked into the entire industry. Then, in the spring of 2026, a jury disagreed. It found that Live Nation had, in fact, illegally monopolized the market. What happens next, whether a court actually orders the company broken apart, or settles on something softer, is still being decided as this video goes out. But after 30 years, one thing has finally changed. The target is no longer the fees. It's the machine that makes the fees inescapable. So what's the real lesson here? Beyond Ticketmaster is annoying. It's that the most durable monopolies usually don't look the way we picture them. We imagine one giant company that makes a product and crushes anyone who tries to build a better one. But Live Nation didn't win by making the best ticketing website. By almost everyone's account, the website is the part people hate most. It won by owning the pieces around the product, the tours on one side, the buildings on the other, so that the product nobody likes has no competitor anybody can reach. That's the move worth remembering, because it turns up far beyond concerts. When a company controls not just a thing you buy, but the road you have to take to buy it and the destination waiting at the other end, it doesn't need to be good. It only needs to be unavoidable. And an unavoidable company can charge you a fee at every step, soak up your anger year after year, and lose nothing, because your anger has nowhere to go. So the clearest sign you're staring at one of these machines isn't a high price. It's a small, quiet fact: you hate it, and you use it anyway. That gap between how much people despise a company and how completely they depend on it isn't a paradox. It's the entire business model. A company you can't stand, that you can't quit, charging you at every turn by design. If the hidden architecture that quietly steers your choices fascinates you, we took apart another one, a store deliberately built as a maze to keep you walking and spending long after you meant to leave. That one's one click away. Follow the money,